All right, let's move along here to Slow Poker. Mr. John Slow Poker. If anybody watches poker vlogs. How's it going, Mr. Slow Poker?
I don't watch poker blogs. They're a waste of time.
Yeah, they're a waste of time. John, did I see you at the series? Did you come to the meetup?
I showed up. I showed up kind of out of nowhere, and I missed the meetup.
Oh,
So,
okay.
which is kind of good news for me because I definitely ate like triple the food that I should have last year. So I see it as a win.
Oh, at Fridays last year. I couldn't remember if we saw you at the meetup. So, where do you play out of?
So I live in North Carolina, where
Okay.
and it's 4.5 hours, 5 hours from any poker. Got Eastern North Carolina, so
Yeah.
Cherokee's 5 hours out, but really, you're tempting death every time there's rain or snow.
Go up them.
And then go up those mountains.
Smoky. What is it?
And then National Harbor. I guess that's the
Grand Smoky Mountains or something like that.
Great Smoky. Yeah.
Great Smoky Mountains. Yeah. I remember that drive from Asheville.
So I don't usually, I'm a poker nomad. I play everywhere, but.
Okay. But you went to the series a little bit this summer, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there for a week or so.
All right. So where's this one played out? Is this one played out of Paris or something?
Yeah. Paris 2.5, which is a 1K cap.
So Paris 2.5, which is that is the game, the no limit game that was actually at the World Series. And they actually had more games at 2.5 and below, many more games at the Horseshoe Poker Room. That little small room that was like the actual Horseshoe Poker Room. And I believe they had 2.5 there too. They didn't really have a ton of 2.5 right at Paris, if I remember looking at Bravo through the summer.
It wasn't a ton. Horseshoe, I've never been. I walked past it, and they have kind of, I forget the blind levels. It's kind of like 2, 3,
Okay.
4, 6. They're weird blind levels.
Right.
And but Paris, like last year, there was some long wait lists and stuff. This year it was like a breeze. I was pretty much sitting down within a couple minutes of signing up. So that was nice. But I mean, so I never had trouble sitting down. But yeah, it wasn't as packed as it was last year.
Okay. So, and how deep are you guys?
We are 1422 effective, and I cover the table, Bart. I cover the table.
1422? Is that what you said exactly?
Yeah, I happen to know exactly. But
okay.
I always wanted to say that we cover the table.
Right. You have like 3,000. No, but the effective stack is 1422. Okay.
No, I don't know. I cover the villain.
Okay.
We're 6-handed at this point. Some people have used the restroom. So we've got the button raises to 15, small blind flat calls, and I'm in the big blind with Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs, and I raise to 75.
Queen of Hearts, Queen of Clubs, 3-bet to 75. I like the sizing if you're that deep. So you're basically going at least 4x plus the dead caller. You could probably even go larger because you guys are, I mean, at 1420 effective, you're 300 big blinds deep, button open, you're going to be out of position. Small blind, so button goes to 15 and the small blind calls 6-handed. That's a little bit of a fishy-ish kind of play there. It's not a 3-blind format, but you always have to wonder, what's this guy doing to my right? Like, I don't know if he was like a fishy type of player, but that's usually not a winning line.
I agree. And if it was like sort of a mild fish at first, like it was like the fish really stunk to high heaven when both the button and the small blind called again.
So they both call.
Yeah. So it's like the as fishy as the first flat scene. That was some old school cartoon fish with like the stink lines coming out of it fish.
Well, I mean, there's certainly going to be hands that I will call with on the button. I mean, I don't think the button has to 4-bet or fold here. But
no, I mean more the small blind. I was shocked at the small blind.
Yeah, the small blind. I mean, that's, yeah. All right, so hero 3-bets to 75. Both guys call, and it's 225. Hero with queen. Okay, in the big blind.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So the flop is 10 of spades, 4 of spades, jack of clubs.
10 of spades, 4 of spades, jack of clubs. So hero with the overpair. Okay.
Mm-hmm. So small blind checks, and I was curious, because at every street here, I was unclear about my decision making because this wasn't the first inflection point, and a lot of my poker nerd friends think that this is a check, and I'm kind of agree, but I want to know what you thought.
This is the difference between sometimes, looking at what the actual reality of the situation is, looking at what it is in theory. Personally, I would just treat this as a single raised pot, 3-handed. And I would probably tend to go 60 here. 60 to pot because it's a 2-flush board on a connecting type of board. And that's because the hand's already a little bit off the rails and what's going on pre-flop. So I'm going to divert to treating this like these guys are way too wide, way, way wider than what they should be, as opposed to possibly thinking about checking the flop in a 3-bet pot like you might on paper on a Jack 10-4 type of board. Your hand also needs a little bit of protection to overcards. Now you do have queen when you don't also you also don't have the queen of spades here either. Maybe one thing, if you look in the order of possible hands to check here in terms of overpairs, aces with the ace of spades being first, queens with no spade would not be on the top of that list. But like I said before, I just treat this as a single raise pot personally.
Yeah, that's what I did, and I had this. My feeling was, yeah, protection, no queen of spades. Let's get some money in there. But I kind of went in the middle, which may be foolish, but I bet 130.
So hero bets. By the way, if I said I don't know why I said 60 before. I was looking at the pot being at $75. It's 225. So when I say like 2/3, it would be more like 150, not 60. Sorry. And you said you bet what? How much?
130.
130. All right. So you sort of took a half pot type of sizing. So you bet 130 here. Okay.
And they both call.
Both call. Wow. Button and small blind call. Button and small blind call. And this actually reminds me, for those of you watching on YouTube, we're doing this off of a live stream. The previous live caller, we kept hounding on the small blind. This guy with ace-4 of diamonds, we kept hounding on the small blinds range here. And I would be very, very surprised if the small blind ever had a strong hand here, like a Jack 10 plus. I just think that hands like that will almost always raise off here, scared sort of the bad beat. You know what I mean? Even not that they even really should slow play, but I mean it's just like you got to get your value in early. So small blind, you're almost always ahead of the small blind. Could the button be slow playing some things? Maybe, but you're almost always ahead of the small blind for sure.
Yeah, in 3 ways, I don't know, especially given I could have all, the ace king of spades and overpairs and all the rest that where it's just your hand isn't safe if you're Jack 10 by any stretch. And I feel like any sets or 2-pair here I'd hear from them. I mean, I think so.
So the pot is, according to my calculations, 615 now.
Yeah.
All right.
So the turn is a 7 of hearts.
So the only thing that changes is 8-9 comes in. So 8-9 was open-ended on Jack 10-4. I don't think that this really stops me from betting, though, to be honest with you, if it gets checked to you.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I'd like to think 8-9 is not in the sort of range of people who would call 3 bets. I mean, obviously, it's certainly possible, and that was in my head, but I thought the same thing. So as I was considering sizing, small blind leads for 275.
Small blind leads for 275.
Mm-hmm.
That's very interesting. But so you didn't know anything about the small blind here, right?
Yeah, both guys, I was friendly with them, but we didn't get any pots together. They're 2 youngish guys from the UK. One of the small blind is actually an ACR. He works at ACR, not a pro, but a executive or something. But yeah,
He's an ACR executive?
I think he helps maybe marketing. I'm not really sure.
So he could be very, very fishy.
He could be fishy.
Who's the owner of ACR? That guy that always chirps off.
Yeah, Nagy.
Yeah, Nagy. But I don't think he can come into the U.S. I think he might be wanted or something. I'm serious. I mean, I don't know. He might not be up on their list, but I'm fairly certain that he makes it so public that he's running an illegal poker site that I think he said he wouldn't come back onto U.S. soil now. So obviously it wasn't Phil Nagy, but I mean, I would at least call here. I wouldn't think about folding, but I think that raising here would definitely be a little bit of an overplay.
Yeah, so I was considering all 3, and I guess if we were heads up, it'd be a different story. But I was still nervous about the button, and I should say, side note, by the way, I had dinner the next night with a bunch of people, including the villain, and that's when I found out he was connected to ACR. If I knew that, I would just jam here. But
you would jam?
No, I'm kidding. I'm just saying because it's ACR and the fish meter should have been even higher. No, I'm kidding. So, but with I was considering, I'd say like when I play lower stakes, like we're talking like nickel stakes just for fun, and someone donks like in a spot like this, it just feels like and the vibe I got from this guy, the read I got was that is this sort of like, I want to see where I'm at. I don't have a made hand. I just want to kind of put a little feeler bet out there and see what he does. And so there was a small part of me that kind of flashed back to those moments and thought like, this guy doesn't have it yet. I know that I knew that jamming was an overplay, but I also worry that calling again, if he has 9-8, then I'm screwed. But I thought calling and then playing some like multi-way Fifth Street Chicken might be the right move. So that's why I did end up calling. But I was
well. You don't want to put your stack at risk against the button here too. And then when you call, the button's probably going to fold out, the non-draw types of hands, and then you're going to have position. So calling achieves kind of the same thing as raising, besides the fact that maybe the button gets like a price on the draw, but you're going to sometimes have to play this where the equity reveals itself on the river. Just one thing of note about what you had said, how you sometimes will gauge this spot, like, oh, the guy's trying to find out. I'll take exception to a couple of things here. Remember, number one, it's 3-bet pot. Number two, it's multi-way. So I understand what you're saying, but I don't think it sets up with this particular hand. Number three, the 7 does bring in a straight. And also, if the guy is a little bit fishy too, it might actually connect some types of 2-pair holdings from like a fishy type of hand selection, like a Jack-7 or a 10-7.
10-7.
If it was a deuce and the guy led, that would be different. That would be much, much different. I would still think that possibly raise, if he led on a deuce of diamonds, right? That's different. It would still kind of be a little bit weird to all of a sudden raise, but I could at least see it 3 ways. But on a 7, I would just think that it's an overplay. So I agree with your call. So hero calls. And what does the button do?
Button folds.
All right, so button folds. All right.
The river is a very interesting card. It's a Queen of Spades.
Queen of Spades, giving you top set, but bringing in the flush. And bringing in like King 9 and like Ace King. Ace King should almost never be.
I immediately ruled out Ace King.
Right,
yeah,
right.
But no, yeah, Ace King's there. Yeah, King 9 of Spades was in my head. But yeah, it brings in some flushes.
All right, and now what happens?
He pauses for 10 seconds and then rips.
For like 9 and change?
9 and change, yep.
I mean, it's a little bit bizarre in the sense that you would think that 8-9 would slow down here. I guess a little bit concerned about spades, but it's also not. I mean, if he only has 950 and the pot is 1165 and he's got 8-9 for a straight, if he actually had 8-9, what is he going to do? Like, if I'm in that spot, like I'm going to bet for value, and it's hard for him to bet full. What is he going to do? Bet 400 or 500, something like that. So, I mean, I'm just giving you my take about, like, people might say, oh, well, that's weird because, he can never have 8-9 there now. I don't think that that's necessarily the case. If you were much deeper and he like made a gigantic jam, maybe, but with less than 1 SPR. Now, whether that happens, whether a lot of people check 8-9, that could be something. And then, of course, like the flush comes in, which, like, if he was somehow betting on the come with some sort of weird type of holding, like if he had Jack X of spades, or he turned 2-pair with like Jack 7 of spades, and then he makes the flush, Ace 8 of spades, or Ace 9 of spades on Jack 10 4-7, turn a gut shot with the nut flush draw. I don't see how I could really call here. Now, at the same time, someone might say, well, if you're saying a bet with 8-9, would a set bet this way? I think it's much less likely now that Ace King comes in as well. Like, if and he'd have to have slow played a set. We talked about that back on the flop, like a set of 4s. Those things, there's just too many, like, if-and things for him to really have a set here, which is some sort of overplayed hand that you beat for value. My point is, I don't think he's betting here anything for value that's worse than your hand. But I don't... I mean, then you say he's an ACR executive.
Yeah, I mean, the 9-8, so if 9-8 like you're saying, if 9-8, he had 9-8, then he had me the whole way. But of course, I would imagine he'd be worried about Broadway, given I have all the ace kings in range. So I kind of ruled out 9-8, but it was in the back of my head as a scant possibility. And then, yeah, it was just a question of, are there, for me, like, yeah, it seemed like if he's still ripping here, then that's not good news, even though of all, I freaking hit top set. But then I think like, oh, well, I mean, I guess if he did slow play, flop or turn, or sorry, slow bid flop, or like hit something on the turn, like he randomly had sevens. I doubt he had sevens, but some two pair, and then like, and I guess he could always have like ace jack with the ace of spades, and he's going for it.
I don't think so. That falls into like the bluff category. I don't know, ace jack with ace of spades seems. I don't buy it. I don't think there's any value hand. Like I said, I'll keep repeating. I don't think there's any value hand that you beat. I think that sometimes he might have 9-8 here. People say scared of ace king. I mean, does ace king call it? Remember, there's the button behind. It's a 3-bet pot. And John slow poker, c-bet the flop. The button in the small blind called. And now the small blind leads for 275. Slow poker should never call here with ace king without spades here. There's no backdoor. You're not going to call with ace king on the turn, right? To a 275 with a guy behind you?
Not without spades.
On the turn? Yeah. So that's why I was just saying that, like, it depends on the level of your opponent. But if I personally had 8-9 here and I was your opponent, I don't think that this card would slow me down. Now, it might slow down less thinking player. And then if he was, setting his price or doing it with some sort of combo draw like spades on the turn, he gets there. So it's not a great spot to, fold out like top set, but if this guy hadn't really shown me that he was, somehow a maniac, I think I make a tough fold here at the end.
Yeah. When he showed, I groaned. Like it's you normally like to see a set, but yeah, and I thought if he's still shoving here, that this is probably a fold, and I kept telling myself, well, in theory, it's probably sometimes a call, but yeah, I don't know, I leveled myself into a call, which I didn't love it, but I called.
All right. What's the reveal from slow poker here?
King of spades, jack of spades.
He had king of spades, jack of spades. King of spades, jack of spades. So he had a flush. And what ended up happening was that it's a little bit strange, but he bet out on the turn. I guess you could call it like a naming price type of bet. I mean, that is one thing that we didn't talk too much about, which was jack X of spades. It was a non-2 pair. So he overcalled with king jack of spades, then decided to just lead the turn. It's not even, I mean, I guess you could say it's a setting price bet. He's betting half the size of the pot. I don't know, what would you have bet if you got checked to on the turn, John?
Yeah, I didn't get the chance, so I never really, yeah.
Well, I'm asking you.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think about that now. So, yeah, so on the turn, it was 615. I think I would have sized up a lot more than 275. I would have made it, somewhere in the neighborhood of 400 to 500.
So you would have bet large.
I would have bet large, yeah.
So him betting 275, I guess, got him to set his price here a little bit. And it's not a terrible block. I mean, I don't know if I would do it with this specific hand, but it's for the same reasons where you can. A lot of times when you're out of position and a straight comes in and somebody can't have it. This is why you see so many turn leads in theory. You're allowed to lead turns with a wide variety of hands, one of which could be somewhat of a block with a draw. You just can't get raised from the pre-flop raiser a ton in that spot. And it's different in a 7 here, or an 8 is probably different because you're not going to have 8-9 and you're not going to have queen-9. Now a 9, you couldn't do that with a 9 because people can have king-queen. But on this particular card, I'm not giving this ACR executive that credit, but I'm just saying. So anyways.
Well, he said two things. One, that not that it matters, but if I had jammed, which was, like you said, an overplay, I agree. He probably would have called, side called and won. It doesn't matter, but there's that. So I had some solace that I would have lost the hand anyway, or I could have folded, obviously. But the other thing that I'm curious about is if the river was a brick, if it was like a deuce of diamonds, and he shoves, which he said he would have done, and I believe him, despite his ACR representation, what would you have called there?
Well, first of all, I don't believe that he would have shoved King Jack of Spades at the end. Why would he have shoved King Jack of Spades on a deuce river on Jack 10 4 7? Do you always have him beat when he has King Jack when you call 275 on the turn? I just don't buy it. I don't believe that King Jack bluffs there. It turns its hand into a bluff on Jack 10 4 7 deuce. I don't buy it. Now, if he shoved at the end on a deuce, I would probably be doing a fair amount of folding, to be honest with you, with queen, queen, blocking king, queen. Now, you don't have a spade, so you don't block spade draws, but it's just, especially like if he's playing a wide range, there's some two pairs and stuff that the turn connects with that you lose to, and a lot of guys don't put in that type of money. But I don't buy that he would have done it specifically with his specific hand, King Jack of Spades, on a deuce river. So,
All right,
John, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
As always, check out Slow Poker over there on YouTube.